little bit of what I'm going to talk about last week. And also, a lot of what I'm going to talk about has to do with Esley's process. And she did a really great training that our group here, myself, Candace, Nick, and Joseph, rewatched when we were kind of digging into this a little bit. So I would recommend, first of all, when you have changes or if you want to get a little bit more like higher level, I think information, Esley is super dialed in on what she does. So I would definitely recommend watching her video on the training page.
Really long.
Has to do with the setup process. So,
do you Blake, do you happen to know the name of that? Maybe you said it already. If
let
not,
me back out real quick. Let me just pull it up. So if you go to the training page, Esley's was. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just totally derailed you.
Let's just do this. Let's just see.
Stop, Castro.
There you go.
Please save your questions for the end.
It's it was on 521. It's the setup process overview and family setup.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So this group was kind of spurred about a few months ago when Larson had asked for some of us to kind of dig into an issue that came up on the Matilda project. And I believe it was a splice location. It was different than what was shown in the drawings. And so the fab team couldn't, do the fabs how they were anticipating because of that change. And he had asked myself, and I was able to rope in Candace, Nick, and Joseph to kind of look into why that was a problem. So basically what we're going to do here is try to understand how the changes that occur during the project drawing stage affect users downstream. And I think it really starts and stops with Esley's team. So as I said, Esley's a part of the setup team. What her team does is they add profiles and families into the model before drafting starts, and this is after the Jumpstart 3 package is complete. I'm going to talk a little bit about the changes and then kind of roll over into drafting and then bring it back to like project management's role. Not all changes require the setup team during the drafting drawing stage. For example, most perimeter changes per Esley do not require setup or jumpstart to get re-involved on the job. If you had a change during the drafting process to parts or dies, different conditions or details, this is when Esley's team would need to get involved as well as jumpstart. So, for example, if you had a door jamb that changed, or a new gasket, or a new glass type, 1180 Main Street, this is when you need to engage with Jumpstart and Esley's team to get a new detail created, to have Esley's team finish the detail for drafting before drafting can get it into your drawings, and ultimately have the correct information for the fab team once you're in that spot after takeoff. So new details from Jumpstart should always go to the setup team before the drafting team. So that's great if your drafter is reaching out to Jumpstart for a new detail. That's only half of the work. Your drafter needs to also make sure that Esley's aware that Jumpstart is needing to create a new detail. And we'll get down to the bottom there with a Revit family request of how you can actually track those changes that Jumpstart and Esley are working on. But I just wanted to point out that Jumpstart has their own library. So many of the details that show up in the Jumpstart 3 package are from their detail library. And then once they get it in the Jumpstart 3 package, Esley kind of does some finishing touches on it to make sure that the details 100% ready for drafting. If Esley's team gets involved during drafting to go ahead and update a detail for her family, it takes 4 to 5 days to clean and fix these details for drafting. But she said allow for 10 days depending on the existing workflow. So once the Jumpstart has finished the detail for Esley's team, they need about a week to go ahead and finish the detail before your drafter can start putting it into your drawings. And that can take up to 2 weeks depending on how much of a backlog they're working on. So I mentioned that there's this Revit family request link here on the portal, and I'm going to pull it up onto the screen here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Oh, I'm sharing. Hang on. My slideshow. Hold on. Let me reshare my screen. So if you go to the portal and you go to the engineering tab, there's a Revit family request, and it looks like this. And these are all of the details that Esley's team is currently working on or has completed for the jobs that are in drafting. So what I would recommend if my job was in drafting and I knew I had a detail that needed to be updated by her team is to go ahead and review this log to kind of track the progress, and that way you can ping Esley if you have questions about an update or you wanted to kind of track the progress.
How'd you get there again, Blake?
If you go to the portal, you go to engineering and you go to the Revit family request link here, and then it looks like this page. One thing that I just remembered that I forgot to add to the slide is that they need a CAD detail for most of what they're doing. So that's something that they would get from Jumpstart. So just to make sure that everything stays on track, talk to Esley, see if the detail that Jumpstart is going to be creating requires a CAD detail, and then that needs to be linked here. So as you can see, some of the details are already linked here. So let me go back to the slideshow. Sorry. All right. So when we were kind of digging into this, we had kind of asked Esley for some examples of like, can you let us know of some current jobs or send us some examples of things that needed to be fixed by your team, so that when we go ahead and report out to the project management group, they can kind of have like a visual idea of what's going on. And she did a really nice job. She went ahead and sent me these 3 snapshots of stuff she was currently working on and gave a reason why she had to get involved. So this detail here on the left that I have first is there's a new project condition, so it wasn't identified during Jumpstart. So automatically it requires a new family. This detail here on the right with the SRT, the closer height increased. So that's a new, there's a new relationship there from the SRT to where the floor is finishing. So they have to go ahead and update that detail. And then there's also something as simple, but it still affects the family of which I wouldn't think of is flipping a fastener from the bottom of an extended cover to the top. Something else we kind of got into a little bit that for me I didn't really understand was profile modifiers. I felt like it's something that gets talked about a lot, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so I'm sure there may be some people as well. But drafting primarily creates the profile modifiers. Profile modifiers are for the fab team. This is in order to let them know that a family is missing and a workaround was created for this condition. Profile modifiers are meant for one-off or small condition changes that would otherwise require the setup team and Jumpstart to create a new or updated detail. It's also something that comes up in the pre-takeoff meeting to go through the list of the profile modifiers that you have on your project. And for the 1180 Main Street job, there's a list that can be exported from drafting that you can share during that meeting, just so the FAB team is aware of, hey, these are the conditions that we have a profile modifier, but there's not actually a family with all that data in the model. So it's just a trigger for their team. So I tried to outline the change process and what that would really look like. So on just about everyone's job, I feel like there's some type of change that may come up during the drafting process. The next step would be to review with Jumpstart the change, because they're going to need to start creating that detail for the setup team. So once you review with Jumpstart, Jumpstart can then create that detail, that CAD detail for Esley's team. Esley's setup team, like I said, will take 4 to 5 days to finish that new detail for drafting. And then at that point, the information's in the model, it has all the data, the family's updated, and then the detail can be re-entered in, or if it's a brand new detail, can be entered into your shop drawings. That way you won't have any issues with the fab team downstream, because you follow the process as it should be, I guess, followed for getting the detail corrected up accurately. So when Nick, Candace, and I were kind of, after we met with drafting, we met with Esley, we talked to Chris Larvik with the fab team, and we really came to the point of like, well, what's like project management's role in all of this? Like how can we help streamline and make these changes that come up? How can we do a better job of following the process? And so one of the things that Esley had kind of hammered in was, if you are asking drafting for a detail or a revision to a detail or a condition that was in the profiles, that there's a 95% chance, she said, that a new family or a family update is going to be required. So if you're wanting to change something, if it's a customer driven change or something that you know is going to be different than what was in the profiles, you should go ahead and reach out to Jumpstart and Esley to get a head start. For me, I thought the best way would be, after you do that and you get the ball rolling with Jumpstart and Esley's team, is in the weekly drafting meeting that you have, if you're at that point of your job, it'd be a good thing to touch on. You know, you have so many of the players there in that meeting that if you're kind of tracking those changes to make sure they don't fall off, you know, that's your one time a week where you kind of get a majority of the design team, you know, with Wolters and Wolf together. So talking about it in your weekly drafting meeting, I felt like was best. And then obviously review your profile drawings. Any details or conditions that aren't in there obviously are not going to be picked up by Jumpstart. So knowing your scope and what we're going to be including in our drawings, or if it's not in your Jumpstart profile, then Esley's not going to do anything with it. And then ultimately you're going to get into drafting and you're going to have to go back. So really just talking to your customer, making sure you have all of your scope nailed down, making sure that that's in your Jumpstart package, because then that'll just create a lot less headaches for you down the road. That's it for what we got into. I think we're at a spot right now where this could become an A3 or a Kaizen to kind of make things more formal, or to kind of dig into it a little bit more. But I think from the project management role, like we have a pretty good opportunity here to try and help this out with our drafters and try to make things better for the fab team down the road. So if anybody has any questions, yeah, I think now's a good time.
Is Watts available? I don't know if you're muted or not, but
yeah, I'm here.
On 1180, like this is a great outline of what steps are and what we should do with Esley and whatever. But I on 1180 main, right? Like the glass change had to be rerun, and like you did something with the data behind the scenes after the takeoffs were done. And then like on Santana West, Travis and Bellis are still doing some other details that were affecting things again after takeoffs were done. And I believe you said something about like, just fix the CAD files, like don't futz with the families. So is there kind of like a line in the sand where it's like, make sure you get the families and do everything, follow this process up until it gets to Yana? And then if it's a customer driven change, like a DORAD or whatever, like you're probably not going to do a family, you're just going to change some CAD files. Is that fair to say? Or am I missing something?
No, you're on the right track. So if you think about it, the thing that ties the shop drawing, to the fab team is the family name. So that family name is unique in the company, and we put a bunch of data on the server to go with it. And every time we use that family, that data gets better and less stuff has to be done. But once you get through doing, once you go through the takeoff, we've built the database of all the families. We're not going to go back and start, changing all these families around and updating everything, because it's going to be a mess. So a lot of times, once you've gone through the takeoff, we should look at it again, because we could do all this extra work, but it's not going to result in anything. Like for, Travis had already ordered his Mac clips, but we're asking Esley to make all these Mac clip families to put in the drawings. It's like, why? So we could put it on a chart that's never going to be used, right? So you just got to look at it. Once you have the pre-takeoff meeting, just give me a call if you're having these kind of changes, and we can walk through it and see which way it's the best. Because, we follow the normal process. There's a lot of steps,
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was getting at is, everyone defaults to the normal process, and, even people in drafting and takeoff. So it would just kind of be on us to start triggering them to be like, hey, maybe we'll take a different run. So I just wanted to make sure I knew where that line was. So if that takeoffs, that's an easy one to pick up. So thank you.
Yeah. Once you hit there, give me a call, because there's definitely, it's kind of like what Paul's going through with the door details. It's like, yeah, I mean, if it were 2 months ago, we might want to change something, but now we're sitting here, who's our customer at this point, right? I mean, your shop drawings are a method to communicate what you want to the takeoff group. But once the takeoff group already did their takeoffs, like, anything you put in those shop drawings, they're never going to see it. They don't go back to it again. They don't pull that data again. You know what I mean? So just want to look at it from a pragmatic point of view at that point. What's the best way to get it done once you've passed a certain point,
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if it doesn't really affect the fabs or the unit assembly drawings, if it's really more of a takeoff, if the families are more keyed in for takeoffs, then that's kind of, I didn't know. I thought the families had all kinds of data built into it that have made certain notches or hole locations or whatever for the assembly drawings. So
yeah, no, it's a great thing to bring up so everybody knows, because I think the question's great. And then, but even fabs, right? Like, let's look at it. If things are changing after the pre-takeoff, let's just look at it together real quick and just see. Because again, I've seen people go down really deep holes that don't ever really get them what they want,
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Blake, also, you mentioned the profile modifiers.
Mm-hmm.
Gabe updated the Revit model. So now when our takeoff people are in Revit, there's a colorized version of the model that shows you any location that has a modifier. So that might be a nice tool, when you first get with the takeoff group, for them to open that view in Revit, and then they can see all the modifiers graphically on the model. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would agree. All right. Well, I think that's all I got. So I'll turn it over to Miranda.
Good job, Blake.
Good job, Blake.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, so I will be going through the process for view purchase orders to purchasing. When we had 684 West Mod, there really was not much of a process. We're kind of learning as we go with view. So we wanted to get this down in Swiss because now purchasing will be taking over the ordering of view, where originally it was done by the PM. And there's a few things that need to be included and things to keep in mind. So this just lays it all out. Okay, so first, PM is to gather all the documentation to attach to the PO rec. Glass order form, indemnity agreement, glass approvals, drawings, wiring diagrams. And the key point, see glass order form to purchasing Swiss, just so you can check it. Compile all documents into one PDF, so it's easy to attach the PO, especially because obviously we can only have 3 attachments. It's just easier if you can combine it into one, or even 2. You could keep your order spreadsheet separate and then just combine all of the other elements. Include any documents specifically requested by customer, for example, a replacement agreement letter, just because View does have a long replacement lead time. So it's nice to get your customer and View on the same page. And the Y, to have all necessary attachments ready at the moment we fill out PO rec. All right, number 2, submit the PO rec purchasing and include step 3 in the body of the PO. See purchase order request to purchasing Swiss for steps on how to write the PO to release the material to purchasing. So this is probably one of the more important parts, is step 3, because this is the indemnity agreement disclaimer, and that needs to go in the description of your PO as well as in an attachment. So this is an example, it's attached right here as well. This is exact verbiage coming from Nick Cosell. At the time, of your purchase order, or, when you're generating all this information, you could always double check with him and make sure this is still current and good to go. But this whole verbiage needs to be in the body of your PO as well as attached in the attachments. Okay, so make sure the date of the disclaimer matches the indemnity agreement, execution date, indicate the agreed terms for View to come to our shop during assembly test and to test the glass, indicate the agreed terms for glass replacement, and request View to send all wires needed to be installed inside our curtain wall for the first delivery. To link the PO to the indemnity agreement. Okay, number 4, purchasing is to process the PO and send to View. Review documentation with PM prior to sending to View to make sure all documents and verbiages are correct, which usually we'll schedule just a quick meeting around that time and just run through it really quickly. And then to release material to View. Number 5, purchasing is to review and sign the OEC order entry confirmation that View will send via DocuSign. Lead time for OEC is 1 week. This is required for View to proceed ordering material. All right, purchasing to check OEC for errors in DocuSign and sign DocuSign prompting the vendor to generate SOA, which is the sales order acknowledgement. You want to check the quantities, dimensions, glass types, and distributions are accurate. Purchasing to notify PM of data entry. So basically I'll let the PM know that it is being entered at that time. And if they want to take a look, they can, but it's just, to move the things along. At the time of the order entry, it's easier for them to make adjustments on the order because it's a 2-step confirmation process. So this is the time that we would want to bring up any, dates that are incorrect or any discrepancies we see in their data entry. And here's an example of what it looks like. And this is attached on the right here, because they do have a little bit of a difference, and it can be a little bit harder to read. So you got to make sure you touch on everything as you go through. And so this is all marked up for you. Okay, so if there are errors detected on confirmation, purchasing must mark up OEC and reject the DocuSign for revisions. View will review, revise, and resend the DocuSign. It's easier for View to make the revisions at time of OEC rather than time of SOA. Purchasing is to attach SOA, sales order acknowledgement, to the report in the portal. Sorry, the report 3. SOA will be received within 1 week of OEC being signed. Purchasing will double check one more time the info in the SOA is accurate against the glass order spreadsheet. Note, the dates that are indicated on the SOA are shipping dates from Olive Branch, Mississippi. There's it's a 10-day lead time from that if you have laminated glass. I also included the lead times just here for their typical types of glass, and then you'd add the shipping time to keep record of the order acknowledgement. So I would combine everything and put it up in the portal for you. Lastly, purchasing will update report 3 due dates, and receive material in the portal for all POs generated for review. Send a follow-up email 4 weeks prior to the ship date to confirm glass is on track, especially because, like, for example, today we had a call where we, scheduled all deliveries for the 4-week duration. So we could either have a call like that or just follow up. Purchasing follows material all the way through being received. And then the last step is just a reminder. The PM is to make sure all accessories are ordered for view glass, which includes the grommets and cable clips. These are not taken off by the takeoff team currently, but we are getting them on the drawings, which is nice. The cable clips are 6 to 8 week lead time because they do come from Trelleborg's sister company in China, so they take a little bit longer, but they're pretty easy custom clips. And then the grommets are determined by the PM, and the PM has confirmed quantities and order accordingly as material is not taken off by takeoff. That's it.
So my question on this, probably to Watts, is about the accessories. Because I know for the Google project, Marco took them off and ordered them himself. It did not come from the takeoff group, but we have mark numbers or part numbers assigned to them. So I'm not quite sure why it wouldn't come from the takeoff group with all of the other miscellaneous. So I was talking to Miranda a little bit and thought it would probably be a good idea to put a note in the pre-takeoff meeting that if you do have view glass, that we at least discuss it then. I would just assume that it would come from them if we've assigned numbers to them. And maybe
Yeah, I think.
it's just early
Well,
on.
I think like Miranda said though, like we've only done a couple of these jobs, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe we haven't just gotten that process together. I mean, Marco was kind of trying to lay out a game plan, and
Yeah.
maybe now that it's a little more clear, maybe it is something the takeoff group could do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because they need to put them on it needs to go on the assembly drawings and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think maybe that might be something we could look at and work through with Pete a little bit,
Okay.
So when these jobs come up, because I know the first job we did, which was, I think San Antonio was one of the main ones we did. And, we had Jose and Ron Nordstrom's, going through updating the shop drawings and going through and making sure all the parts were taken off. And, they were deep in that thing on that first job. And then I think when this one came up, we tried to make it more of a process.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think we've bridged that gap yet. So that's probably a little hole in the system.
So another question, is the indemnity agreement relatively flushed out now between us and View? Because it took forever on America Center, and it took months with Haleo on industrial to have Nick and the lawyers and the other companies figure that out. So is that an easier process now, like because we've worked with them before?
Yeah.
I'd say the front part, with View and maybe with Haleo, but for sure with View is probably easier. The hardest part is trying to get the GC or the owner to sign on. That's where usually the bottleneck is, but I think we've worked out the agreement part and done that with View enough that they've seen it. But yeah, when you go to level 10 or you go to you want to pass that into the owner, because that's really what we're saying is like, look, this glass, we're not warranting at all. You're taking all that liability on. And if something goes wrong, it's, we have no culpability. And a lot of people don't nobody wants to sign that for some reason. So.
That should be kind of viewed up front with the estimator as well, though, before we even bid a view job, right? We're doing that early on in the process, I'm hoping.
Well, yeah. So, if you could ever get their shit together and be part of the front end process, it would happen that way. But almost every job gets backdoored. View goes to the owner and says, hey, we could give you this glass for, $20 a square foot extra and swap it all out. Right. So that's kind of what's been happening. And that's why it happens on the back end. It should happen in the front end, but normally View isn't even there in the front end.
Yeah. I didn't know they were still doing that. Okay.
And then just the only other thing from the previous jobs, I'm assuming this would be the same process, purchasing if we'd have another Halio job, even though it's specifically for Vue. But for both Vue and Halio, I was told to get an approved wiring diagram and or mock that up prior to placing the order. So, and I didn't see any mention of that. And then there's also like cable length, like the IGU, the pigtail can kind of vary.
I think for step 1, I think wiring diagram is in there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And we did get it, and I don't know on Halio if it was included, but this go round for Google, we updated the wiring diagram to show the degrees of the bends as well. That was something Nick was really pushing to make sure that they say okay to, you know, everything we're doing basically. So I got that signed off from Google, or excuse me, from Vue on Google, but it was after the fact. I mean, the PO had already gone out, but they did just sign it for me. So I don't know if we want to use this Google one as a template and just make it, that's the generic wiring diagram that goes out. You know, take the Google name off of it and just have Vue wiring diagram and use that, because it does have some extreme bends on there. And you know, most of the details I would think would be pretty typical for any of the Vue projects. So maybe we can make that a default template that goes out. I don't know. I sent it to you, Larson. I didn't want you to talk with Nick, or if I just go talk to Nick, either way, it's fine.
Yeah, it's really going to depend, because it's going to be in each curtain wall system that it goes to.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the details will be like that. So
Okay.
the whole thing in the wiring diagram, the why behind it is because, you know, Vue says we can bend the wires this much, and we're over bending them to theirs. So we want to get them to sign off on it, because we have had to do a lot of replacement, and that's the first thing they say is we damage their wires. So I think we'll probably need a new one, or one job specific on each one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions?
And Brian, we had talked about that if there were new Halio ones, Miranda was going to kind of get with you and talk and see if this could be the same for both of them, or if maybe there are a few little different things you do with Halio, and she could write up a separate one for that. But I'm assuming they're probably pretty similar, and you can combine
it's the exact same. It's the exact same. It's just, I don't know if there's an OEC, you know what I mean? Like the confirmation things probably have a different name, but it's the exact same steps.
Cool.
And then this is obviously for everything you do. So even your main order, like fine, but if you have 6 replacement orders, like you got to follow the same step for every single PO you place for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Miranda.
Cool. No problem. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? Okay.
Good stuff.
I don't think so.
So next week's training is going to be Shiloh and Janaid from the Seattle office. They're going to be presenting project in Bluebeam for field use.
Projects, yeah. But I'm not presenting anything. It's all. How do you pronounce her name?
I say Janaid. Is that right?
Janaid?
Yes,
Janaid. Okay. I don't want to botch it up, but yeah, Janaid's gonna. She said she'll be ready.
Okay.
Tell all your friends.
Tell all your friends. So we have more than 14 people.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Just real quick though, yeah, when you're telling your friends, so the point of that presentation is, this is probably the way we're thinking of using Bluebeam to replace our current field docs. So the way that you're sharing stuff via Dropbox and things like that, we're looking at maybe going this way, the way Seattle is. So this would be the field binder that your field guys would be using. So it'd be good for all the PMs to come to see. So we, you know, because that's really the purpose of this presentation. That's what Shiloh's trying to present, is that maybe there's a better way for us to share our documents with the field than the way we're doing it currently. So
Are we gonna ask the field for their input since it's kind of,
I have already talked to the field about what stuff works best for them, but
the superintendents or?
no, I've gone on and talked to lead men. But I can't really put the whole picture together until I see what this Bluebeams project is. I've never seen it before, so I'm trying to understand how that office is using it, and then maybe if I like it, I'll present it to the field on Matilda, and we'll try it out there and see how it works for them, and then kind of report back to everybody. But we're just trying to find the best way. And Watts, we'll mention it on our Monday morning stand up to all the PMs about what the presentation on Thursday is, and just reiterate that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do Friday planning.
We should do Friday, mention it in Friday planning as well. So then it gets the Vegas and Laverne guys also.
Good idea.
yeah, I think your approach is good though. It's like, let's look at it internally, and make sure it's even something we're thinking about, and then do a little experiment, and then we could bring the field guys in because we'd know more. Because I think you're right. Like they probably have a lot of questions. We'd have no idea how to answer them. So might as well start with us and kind of work from there, right?
Yeah, totally.
Someone's having a little party, so we'll let you guys go.
Who's having a party?
I don't know. You can't hear all that ruckus?
It might be my background. I
All
don't
right.
know.
Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Sorry, guys. Bye.
Bye.